I'm from Newark, New Jersey, and I went to Barringer High School, and there was a number of former players that were already at the University of Iowa when I was getting recruited. And so 5 of us from my high school went to Iowa. So Iowa was recruiting on the East Coast, real, big time.
Right.
And before we went to Iowa, they didn't have a winning season in 21 years. So all I knew was that it was a big time program, but they was at the bottom.
Right.
But collectively, as teammates, we decided that we're going to go to Iowa and help turn this program around, which we did. Yeah.
So you were playing under Hayden Fry. Was that like middle of his tenure there?
No, that was just his third year.
Okay.
It was his 3rd year, and then I came in, and I'm writing a book, Frank. So I was writing about Hayden Fry, and that I was living in the projects, and Hayden Fry was the only coach that came and walked up 12 flights of stairs to come meet my mother to convince her that I was the type of player that they was looking for to come to Iowa. But that made me say, wow, this guy is real. He's coming all the way in the projects, not afraid. He's authentic. He's himself and funny, and he stayed for a long time. And he let my mother know that that he can make it we got all the resources to help him make it at Iowa. He just got to make up his mind that that's what he wants to do.
And at that point, what did you even know Iowa was a state?
Well, that's funny, Frank. Now, that's the funniest things in the world. No. Because everybody was like, where the heck is Iowa anyway? We didn't even know Iowa was a state. But, when we got to go out there and visit, on a recruiting trip, the people was outstanding, and even though they had a losing season, number of seasons, the fan base was strong, man. The Big Ten was just there, and so, because we decided, and a couple of players already been there. I don't know if you remember Andre Tippett, who played for the New England Patriot linebacker. Now he's a NFL Hall of Famer. Well, I played with him in grammar school, high school, college, and then, he went to the pros and I went to the pros. So, and he had a heck of a career. So, I went to the University of Iowa. Originally, I was going to go to Pitt because actually I was a quarterback, all-American quarterback coming out of high school, and everybody wanted me to play quarterback. And Pitt was the only school to talk to me about being a defensive back. Now, I chose that I wanted to play defensive back because, if you remember, there was only 2 black quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right.
And that was Doug Williams and Vince Evans for the Chicago Bears. So those was the only 2 brothers. They was tall. The offensive line was tall.
Right.
So I said, let me go ahead and play defensive back. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so, go ahead.
So you're looking at Pitt. That would have been at that point would have been the late Johnny Majors, right?
No, actually, it was yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, right.
I was thinking of the defensive back coach, Ron. What was his name? Really, really good recruiter, a nice guy. And actually, I made a verbal commitment to them, but I ended up going to Iowa with the rest of the guys.
All right, so you get there to Iowa. Now you've got your crew with you, which makes it a little bit easier, or at least goes away from the homesickness part. But you're still in foreign territory, basically, right? So you're a couple of years in, and you're thinking, all right, now we belong. And at that point, if I remember right, like the '82 season, I was no longer the doormat of the Big Ten. You guys have brought them to the forefront.
That's correct. We in '82 we played in the Rose Bowl.
Right.
'81-'82 season, and I was also writing about that, or I was doing a video on that, talking about how Hayden Fry had changed the culture to get us from being the doormat and making us believe that not only we can play with them, but we can also beat them. Because if you remember, the Big Ten was called the Big Two and the Little Eight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is really, really embarrassing.
I can imagine so.
I remember my freshman year saying to myself that once we got rid of a couple of bad apples on our team, we was going to be very good because they was really recruiting. Now, if you remember the coaching staff was Barry Alvarez, Bill Snyder, Dan McCarney, who was the head coach at Iowa State. After playing with Bobby Stoops, he was on the staff too. And a number of coaches that just went on and did a number of things under Hayden Fry. So, you know, recruiting was their strong point, and finding the right players to bring into the system, like you have to do any system that when you're trying to change the culture.
Right.
They don't necessarily, as you know, to be a star 4 or star 5 player. You just got to get them to play above their level.
Right. Right. So you just mentioned 3 Hall of Fame coaches right there that you had a chance to learn from at the beginning. So that's fantastic.
Right. And it was wonderful, man. We had good times and to see the program turn around and us go to the Rose Bowl. And then the next year we went to the Peach Bowl. And then the next year we went to the Gator Bowl. And then the next year we went to the Freedom Bowl, which was my senior year.
Okay.
So it was wonderful to go into a place originally seeing that, you know, they had a hard time winning, but then help turning the program around and making it a success, and then went on from there, as you can see.
Well, as a kid growing up in Central Ohio, North Central Ohio, I'm an Ohio State guy, right? So
yes.
When you got there, my only recollection of Iowa was the stand-up tight ends. That's all I can remember. They wore the black jerseys and they had the stand-up tight ends. And that's weird. And then within a few years, it's like, wait a second, we've got to play to beat these guys. And we may not win. Yeah. So, and I kind of have that correlation, the same kind of jerseys with Colorado a couple of years later, where it's like suddenly, and you're talking Andre Tippett, you know, when they had Alfred Williams and those kind of guys, you go, wait a second, where do these guys come from? That's recruiting. That's right. And you're looking, and then as you said, you know, the Ronnie Harmons of the world and the Chuck Longs, where do these gentlemen come from? Well, now we know. Good.
That's right. Well, that's, you know, you really got to sell someone on recruiting when you're at the bottom and you really haven't won, and to get players like that to come in and want to play for you. But, you know, I remember they used to give me the top recruits because I was just that type of guy that was almost like a salesperson. And once they saw how I was living and what I was talking about, then it seemed like guys, because I'm the one who hosted Ronnie Harmon, Kevin Harmon, you know, John Hayes, you know, different players like that, man. So, you know, I enjoyed being there in my time, and Hayden Fry was wonderful, man. I remember I was ready to go to the Freedom Bowl, and I said to my position coach, Bill Brazier, that I graduate next year. He said, "You sure, Keith?" And he checked with the academic advisor, and he said, "Yep, he graduates next week." So I said, "Oh, well, Coach, I plan on walking across the stage." Now, we was going to the Freedom Bowl. So we was going to the Freedom Bowl 3 days before. So I went to Hayden Fry, and I said, "Coach Fry, knowing you and understanding how you operate, I know that I'm supposed to travel with the team, but I came to Iowa to graduate because it's interesting, Frank. I was on probation when I first got there. Okay. And out of the 20 guys that came in with me, I was the first and only one to graduate because I did an internship every year." So Coach Fry said, "I'm not sure, Keith. I just need to check with the NCAA, you know, for the rules." Right. And he did. And then 3 days later, I joined the team. I walked across the stage because that was very important.
And I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of that recruiting process from him when he's sitting in your home in New Jersey is your boy's going to walk across that stage, or at least he's going to graduate.
That's right. Well, that was the plan. As long as I put the work in and did all the things that I needed to do. And that's why I never understand why athletes ever fell out of school, because you can have as many tutors as you like.
Right.
So I don't understand that. Plus the study hall, plus the academic advisors, and plus you got all these people to help you. So after my freshman year, I got to tell you this first. When I was in high school, this teacher said, "Where are you going to school?" I said, "The University of Iowa." And he said, "Great." But he thought I moved from the spot I was at, and he walked around the corner and was talking to another teacher, and he said, "I guarantee you that he'll be back saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda, just like everybody else."
Just like everybody else, yeah.
So that was my motivation.
Your little
So when I'm speaking to kids, I say, you got to find your own motivation.
Right.
And that's what it was for me. So I said, I'm not coming back to Newark, New Jersey without a degree.
Right. I'm going to prove this MF wrong, right?
That's correct.
Yep,
So, but everybody needs that push, that motivation, right? He didn't know that, but it did it for me. And that's all that mattered. And so when I graduated my senior year, I graduated with honors as well, because I put the time in, and I was in communication, and I did an internship every year. I did an internship on Capitol Hill. I did an internship in radio. I did an internship in television, so I had a ball, man. And then believe it or not, Frank, I got paid and credit over the summer. That's how I got out so fast. I got 12 credits over the summer.
For the internship, yeah. See?
For 4 years.
Right. and normal dummies like me don't understand that. And after being in school for 17 years, you're like, why haven't I graduated yet?
Well, it was interesting because I kind of started the cooperative education program. Even though the university had it, none of the athletes knew about it. All they knew was I was gone every summer and I was getting credit and I was making money. And then when I get my senior year, they said, Keith is gone. He graduated. And they're like, wow. Right. And then I heard all the other players start getting in. But it's interesting, Frank, after I left, Hayden Fry used to tell the story every year when the freshmen come in. And he would say, there was a guy, a student athlete just like y'all, sitting in the same seat that you're sitting in, named Keith Hunter. He came here. We didn't know if he was going to be here a week, a month, a year, or 4 years. But what we knew about Keith is every time you tell him he can't do something, he will prove you wrong. And this guy, he did internships. He was the captain of the football team, and he was sitting in the same seat that you were sitting in. But he made up his own mind that he was going to create his own legacy.
And I think that's the important thing. That's the important thing to understand, that not only can people are allowed to tell you no. People are allowed to have their own opinion. Doesn't mean you have, and it's also important to listen to what they say, but it doesn't mean they're always right.
That's correct.
And then to make sure that you leave your mark so that the person that you looked up to is now using you as an example. That's fantastic.
Yes, that's correct. And that's what I'm most proud of, because some of the younger players that played at Iowa, they was like, man, you was like my idol. And we used to say, where'd Keith at? I said, man, I was busy. I was trying to get out as fast as I can, But from there, Frank, I had a great football career at Iowa and made all Big Ten and things like that. And then, if you remember, they used to have the USFL and the NFL. Yes, that's where all those players came from in the NFL.
Well,
remember that?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're working on doing a show on the USFL and how players got there and where they did from that. So we'll talk to you about that in another week or so. But yeah, that's
nice. But I got drafted in the 6th round by the Oakland Invaders for the USFL. But I had decided to go to the Cleveland Browns because they gave me a free agent opportunity to come in. And I should have gone. Honestly, I should have gone to the Oakland Invaders. And
hindsight, right?
But yeah, right. But, you know, because of the name and Jim Brown and, you know, and wanting to be with the Cleveland Browns, I just decided to do that instead. And it was wonderful for me. You know, I mean, I wasn't there that long, but they still treat me like I was there forever today.
Right.
You know, I'm a part of the alumni, and I didn't really care though, Frank, because truthfully, I had a degree, right? So I wasn't going to chase football. Like, let's say when the Browns cut me and I go to the CFL, I go here and try to run over trying to make all these teams. I had a degree, and that was my purpose more so than anything else. But I was only there for a little bit of time, and then when my time was up, you know, I decided that, you know, I'm gonna deal with life.
All right. So at this point, you've made the decision, and they helped obviously, but you made the decision. Okay, it's now time to put this degree to use. What's the first thing that you think of doing?
Well, I knew that I had a gift for gab, so I was going to be in sales. So I went to work for Packy Webb Ford, which was the other defensive end on the other side of Andre Tippett family, owned in Chicago, in Wheaton, Illinois. So that was an easy transition for me to get some sales experience and go there and work, sell cars and stuff like that. So I did that, it was very successful. And then I did a couple of other things in sales, selling copiers. I was in Chicago, moved to Hawaii, sold copiers over there. That was a great opportunity. And then I just decided that I wanted to do my own thing. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time.
And from some of the people I've talked to, that's kind of a football player mentality, because it's not easy to own your own business, be your own boss, do all the stuff yourself, and then put it into play. So you've got to have that inner drive, and again, that thought of, I don't care what anyone else says, I'm going to make this work.
And not only that, Frank, when you have the opportunity, as you know, to be with somebody like Bo Schembechler or Hayden Fry and hear them talk about their success. And I just remember how those stories used to really affect me when Hayden Fry tells the story. I was always looking for the next story. I remember he told a story about the first time he made $100,000. And he just kept going, 100,000, 300,000, because he was already a millionaire before he came to Iowa.
Right.
Plus he owned the logo.
Right.
Which he was getting 6 cents on the dollar. So imagine that.
Right.
You know, so to hear those stories, and he was, you know, get you involved in it, in the whole thing. And so if you remember that, plus, you know, like you were saying, you know, being a strong individual, understanding the big picture, you know, and trying to understand how everything works, then there you go. You off and run it.
And I would think as a defensive back, I mean, you have to have that selective memory of, all right, it didn't work this time, but in the long run, I'm going to come out ahead.
Right. And then, you know, I'm not going to win all the time.
Right.
And so you're going to lose some, you're going to win some. But the first thing I did was I used to go and buy Hugo Boss suits from this clothing company in Cleveland. And then I lived in Chicago at the time. And then I would travel around to the NFL teams, go to a hotel, have some wine, cheese, crackers, and then sell the suits to the players. So I had to have, you know, a lot of guts to be able to do that, but I enjoyed doing that.
And become the clothier to the stars.
Well, you know, the people I knew, and the reason why at the time the Hugo Boss suits you like the athletes couldn't buy a suit off the rack.
Right.
So the Hugo Boss suit was the only suit where you would have, because the defensive ends had big shoulders and little waists. They, today if you buy a 48 jacket, the pants are going to be almost 48.
Right.
Where then it was, the pants might still be a 32, a 33, so they could buy the Hugo Boss suit like that then. Otherwise, they had to get everything tailor-made.
Right. And as you say, you enter the league, you don't know how to do any of that stuff. You don't know how to shop. Right. You don't know where the tailor is. You just got signed by Seattle. You've never been to Seattle before. Where is the tailor? Where do I get my hair cut? Right. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Right. And so, I just decided to enjoy myself, man. And that's what I did. And I've done a lot of things from there, in clothing. But when I think I was in back to New Jersey, I decided that I was going to do this. No, I was in Ohio. So I was doing the golf thing. First, I went into coaching, right? I was coaching college football. So I coached at Montclair State. I coached at Fordham University. I coached at American International College. And then as a volunteer coach at Iowa. And then, because that's how I really got into golf. So when they would have the coaches convention at, wherever they have them every year somewhere else. At the time, I was a tennis player.
Okay.
So they used to have a tennis and a golf tournament at the conference, at the football. What is the SF, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I played tennis, all my friends played golf. And so this is how I got introduced to golf. They was like, oh man, come on out and play golf. I said, man, I don't want to play that sissy game and chase some little white ball around, So, and you thinking that you're an athlete, you could just go and hit this golf ball.
It doesn't move, right?
Right, it doesn't move. So $500 later, because I had nothing, right? I had no clubs. I had to rent the club. I got some shoes. I got balls, tees, and I bought some clothing. And once I did all of that, I was 500 in the hole. I remember calling my wife and saying, I got to spend this money because they want me to come out and play with them. And, all you got to do is hit the ball one time. Good, this. And that game just keeps calling you back.
Yep.
And I fell in love with the game. And from then on, I just, and when I lived in Ohio, there was a lot of brothers who played. I mean, that in Columbus, Ohio, who were really, really good.
And a lot of courses to play, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And at a great price.
Right. Exactly.
So, what I did, though, Frank, is I got tired of people telling me how to play and how to hit the ball and do.
Mm-hmm.
So I did something that nobody else did. I went to school every year, golf school. So I would pay $1,500 to go to a school for a week, end up hitting 6,000 balls. It was like a tour day, right? You go in the morning, the pros teach you every part of the game. In the afternoon, same thing, depending on short, long game. And then at night, you play 9 holes. Right. And when I got back home, my hands were sore after hitting 6,000 balls. Who does that other than, the pros on tour?
Right.
And so, but I loved it. And every year I went and I got better and I got better and I got into the PGA program. And then when I first went to I got out of football and just went into golf. And what made me do that was I went to the PGA show. You ever been to the PGA show?
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. And I walked into that building and at that time, I only saw 5 black people at the show. But when I walked in it, I saw the dollars, right? I said, this $1 billion business, I need to be a part of it.
Right.
And me and a buddy was together. And I said, next year, I'm going to be in this building. And I was. So I started my own clothing line. I don't know if you know that. I had a whole umbrella. So I had me as a speaker. I had me as a golf pro, me as a teacher, and then I had my whole clothing line. First, I started off just with men's stuff, and then I moved from a men's clothing, golf clothing line to a women's to plus size.
Okay.
So I was in the building, you know, so I know a lot of people in the golf industry, and I just loved it.
And as an entrepreneur, multiple streams of income, multiple streams of residual income. Yeah, good, good, yeah.
Right, and I didn't even think about it at the time. I was just doing it all.
Right.
And so, but one thing I was doing that I really made some good money from in golf was I was doing corporate clinics around the country from word of mouth.
Right.
Right.
Great.
So, and then, you know, they would pay me a lot of money to do that. So I ended up being a speaker plus the, you know, teaching the clinic as well. So I really enjoyed that. I did 3 of them for Merrill Lynch, and it was my idea. So I said to Merrill Lynch, let me tell you how you can get customers, right? I said, you don't really do anything for your customers now that have portfolios with you other than service them. Right. After you initially get them, you just service them. So you should give something back to your customers. So you give your customers the golf clinic, give it to them, and then ask them to bring somebody, and that's how you get a new customer.
Right, right.
And they love that idea. And then in Columbus, Ohio, I did that for Merrill Lynch at I can't remember the country club, but at a country club. And even the pros at the country club was like, how did you get that? How did you get that gig first? And then one of the pros said, that's the best clinic I've ever seen. And what I did, this will blow your mind. I took their portfolio, you know, all the options you have in a portfolio,
right, and
compared it to the arsenal in golf. And I told them it was no different. So it's just like hitting different shots. Your portfolio is the same thing.
Right. So this is you out of the sand. This is where you're at here. That's lovely.
Well, I don't know how I came up with that, Frank, but it was brilliant to me. Right.
Oh, that's great. And so you've managed to take several different things and jam them together and to make it one. Like I said, I never would have thought about that. I have an idea of what I would do with the golf thing, but I never would have thought of doing it that way. And then you've added the business part of it, but also the leisure and the camaraderie and getting people together. Like you said, you can't have a bad time on the golf course unless you got really bad people with you. So that's an ideal place to do business. It is.
Well, that's what they say, right? That it's there for. That's correct. You know, and then once I did that and I was teaching, I also played on the Sunbelt Senior Tour. You know, I was the only brother out there. It cost about $1,500 a week. And then, you know, that was just playing and the living, and then you're eating, you're going to spend money, and then you go to the next town. Now, I didn't win any money because that was your way to get to the Champions Tour.
Right.
Because you had to establish the relationship with the guys on the lower end of the Champion Tour used to come down and win all the money.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? And so I had fun doing that. I love that, you know, and you just learn something, and again, you're creating relationships, and it's just wonderful.
Okay, now let's talk about the books. I know you said you're in the midst of doing them, but what gave you the idea to say, hey, I can be an author?
Well, believe it or not, I started writing a book a long time ago. And a girlfriend of mine, because I had it inside a computer, she got mad at me and got rid of the computer.
I've had that happen.
So, because I started writing a long time ago, I said one day I'm gonna write a book. But so now after I did the TED Talk, right? Now, when I went to do the TED Talk, I really signed up for the TED Talk for next year. And after emailing them, the lady emailing me back and saying, okay, we'll talk to you after this one is over.
Okay.
Hour later, they emailed me back and asked me, can I do it now? But by then, they had went online and saw that I'd done some commercials and I'm comfortable in front of the camera. So plus I already had mine already wrapped up,
right.
You know, because I do a lot of writing. So, but after the TED Talk, you know, people don't understand, being on the TED Talk is almost like being on American Idol.
Right, right.
You know, the people who don't win still get a lot of exposure and a lot of things come after them. So once I saw that, you know, a lot of podcasts, radio, and television shows, and this is actually the first one I've done. I haven't really decided to do anything yet. And so I said, I need to go ahead and do this book. And so on LinkedIn, I found a lady that writes a book for professional athletes only.
Okay.
So she knows the lingo, and I felt real comfortable with that. That's what made me go ahead and get it done.
Well, and it's you have a unique perspective. Like I said, you're one of the first people I know that have gone from football, and as we talked off there, though it's not a quarterback, has gone from football to golf, and because it's just it's not that kind of swing. And you added the tennis thing. I'm an old tennis player as well, and I know that as you said, the difficulty of understanding, hey, I can hit this tennis ball, and I can move across the court, and I can adjust, and I can, you know, add different spins and adjust the height and depth and all that. And then I go to hit this tennis ball that hasn't moved yet, and it's harder to hit than the golf ball than the tennis ball. So right. That perspective, yeah, I'm a lousy. I love to play golf, but I'm a lousy golfer because I just can't get out of my head. Just hit it there. It's not that hard. To be that hard.
You really,
but that
know,
perspective
the
of
is,
putting all those things to be able to create business out of it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I enjoyed about it the most. And so I almost forgot where I was at with talking about the clinics and things like that. But no, I really enjoyed the golf part of it and the business part of it, and it's just so much that you can do, you know. And the other part of golf is people don't realize, I don't think, how many African Americans are in golf. You know, one of the things that I wanted to do was create the golf clinics like I was doing for guys who were really pros, the African American pros who was doing what I was doing. And I don't think too many people got the opportunity to do that. And you got to create relationships to do that.
Well, I have one of my best friends who just couldn't even fathom the idea of playing golf up until probably his mid-30s. Like he said, there's no golf, there's no grass in the hood. Why would I want to do this? And we would go play. He's like, he had no interest in playing golf with us at all. He didn't even want to come ride in the cart. And then one day it kicked in his head because we were having fun and he couldn't stand, very competitive, couldn't stand not doing something as well as we could do it. Mm-hmm. And he picked it up, and now, you know, 2 hip replacements later, he's still out there playing. You know, now he's in his 50s and he's like, I can't wait for the weather to break. I can't wait for them to let me go on the golf course. And he's ready to go, ready to go, ready to go. You know, he can't, and he doesn't care if we go with him, if he goes by himself, if he's chipping out of the parking lot, he just wants to play. And it's something, like you said, that gets us involved, and you get to meet people, you get to have a good time with it, and it's a great business idea as well.
Yeah, so now I get the opportunity to write about, in the book, to write about a little bit of all of that. But really, my book is it's called Vulnerable Measures. And I'm really trying to help athletes and parents and people who are connected to them to understand athletics, big time athletics. So if you're a single mom and you have a big time player, you just hear people talking about your player, your son, but you don't know anything about the business of college football. So I'm helping them understand what that athlete is going through. Like one part of the book is it's going to blow people's mind is called the pedestal, right? So when you're in Pop Warner, people don't understand that once they start seeing your talent and you start getting that, that's when they first place you on that pedestal.
Right.
And then, you know, I mean, obviously there's a whole story about it, but the whole thing is once you go to the pro, and now when it's time for you to, when it's all over for you, nobody helps you get off the pedestal.
Right.
And they just expect you to get off on your own.
Right.
And they don't realize that players is almost like what President Clinton said. They said, when you finish being the president, what are you going to miss the most? He said, when I walk into the room and they play music.
Right, right, exactly. But that's it.
Right.
You know, you.
But for the player, it's they don't hear the clapping anymore.
Right. And you don't have that venue to be in. And as you mentioned, you're in your mid-20s when it happens.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. You're
That's
like,
right. And you're like,
wait
it's
a second.
all over for me.
Right.
Right.
I spent my entire life being this guy, and they've taken it away, or it's been taken away from me, and now I got 50, 60 more years to live.
That's right. What am I going to do now? Especially if I haven't prepared myself in some type of way, or somebody, when I was making the money, somebody showed me how to invest in certain things. So now, once it's all over, I have something to go back to. But, you know, before that college player, that high school college player gets to that point, there's a lot of issues because, as you know, today the kid is different, right? Right. So now the real problem is speaking verbally, knowing how to talk verbally, and the frustration part of it. So I'm trying to help them, give them the how and the why that I don't think nobody else is doing.
Well, looking back from where you came from, it seems like just using you and what little I know about Andre Tippett, you must have come from a pretty well-grounded neighborhood or a school system.
Well, from a football standpoint, I mean, remember I was on probation, so, you know, I don't think the school system was that great, but we had great people. And then, but the majority of the problem was mine, just not studying, stuff like that. But obviously I turned that around once I got to Iowa. So just with my story alone, Frank, that now I can explain my vulnerability to that kid, almost saying I'm no different than you are today. And here's the things that you can do to fix that.
Right. And saying, okay, for example, you get from the probation spot, which has got to be tough in your mind to say, this isn't who I am, and be able to turn that into a positive. Right.
But you got to realize that, you know, again, taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you.
Right.
And what I did was, it happened by luck. I was in this building just looking around, the communication building, and this older white dean was sitting in his office, and he taught the top communication class once you become a senior. And so I said, sir, I need some help. I know you teach the top class as a senior, so what classes should I take along the way? And without me knowing it, I just thought he was going to hand me a pamphlet and say, go through it. This guy wrote down everything for me, and I did exactly what he gave me. And I became successful, just doing it his way. But he took the time.
Right. I think if you're curious and you want to succeed and you ask questions, you'll find answers. Like you said, you may not always get the answers you want, You may not always get them right away. You're not always going to win, but you're going to get there. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because, you know, when you're a freshman and you're a pretty good ball player, and I come from a winning tradition from high school, and all of these players from my high school have gone to college, and another number of them have played in the NFL, that you think that you're thinking football when you originally get there. But thank God that they was concerned about me and the promise that they made my mother that, you know, focus on trying to make it. Because just imagine coming from Newark, New Jersey, going to, let's just say, a majority white school, but it's 30,000. You know, you go, I get in class, Frank, and I go, you know, there was 50 people in class, and now we give a test and it's 300.
Right.
Where they come from?
Right. I witnessed
and that's
that
intimidating, man.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
You know, and then if you're a regular student, then they really only know you by your social security number.
Right. Right.
They happen to know us because it's big time. If they watch football, then they kind of know who we are.
But you still have to, the onus is on you to make sure that it works, right?
Well, no doubt, man. And all the things that you know, that's one of the things I was writing the book about is that if you look at, as you know, all the things that you have to do that's demanding of you as a student athlete, and all the schedule, just your one-day schedule,
right,
of all the places that you have to be that starts at 5 in the morning. Every morning.
Right. Right.
So it's almost like, and that's where, you know, somebody reminded me that, Keith, you're almost like you're from the military.
Yeah.
Because your clock is set 10 minutes ahead of time. We used to call that fry time, right?
Yep.
Because fry was a military corps. I mean, the Marine Corps. So it was almost like, you know, you're a ball player, but it's military. And you're operating that way in many cases.
I believe me, my dad was in the Air Force, so I understand that all our clocks were set 50 minutes ahead in the house. Yeah, and I'm the knuckle that say, but you know that it's not the right time. You're missing the point. What's the point? You'll figure out one of these days, like, oh, okay, fine, yeah. And that's the thing. You just it gets ingrained in you, right? Yeah.
Right, and the point is, if you are on time, you're late.
Right.
That's the mentality.
Yeah. It's hard for a kid to understand that, but that becomes important as you go along, because now you're trustworthy. Now that you're reliable, now that you can do the things you want to do, now you can do things on your own because you can make that impression to other people. And that's the first one. Right.
But before you can get there, the problem is, just like me, nobody explained it to you, right?
Right.
You just show up at a University of Iowa with 30,000 students, with 120 players on a team that you've never been on a team like that before.
Right.
And you're not the only star, and it's just moving. You're fast paced. So you have to adapt somehow. And the book is helping them understand that part of it.
And like you said, you've been on the pedestal for so long. What happens when you're not on the pedestal anymore?
Well, you know, that's the tough part. And here's the thing that people really don't talk about, is that when it's over for you, there's a lot of NFL players that you don't hear about commit suicide.
Right, right.
Because they can't nobody have helped them get off the pedestal.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a very tough thing. You know, from Pop Warner, and then people put you up there. You didn't really ask to be up there, right? So through parents and fans and friends, and they put you on that pedestal. And then you didn't ask to be on there, but, you know, once it's all over and you got to get off, it's like, what do you mean?
And it's also that how do you avoid being used by the people that want to keep you on that pedestal just for who you are or who you appear to be, but not really for who you are. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they end up using you in a lot of ways. You know, and they'll deal with you with only you keep your nose, but things don't go down.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't mean to keep you this long. This has been fantastic. I appreciate you being on. I've got at least another 4 shows I can think of to talk about with you. So we'll revisit later. But you know, Keith, it's been great. I really appreciate you taking the time, providing some insight. Of all the things that we talked about, I just wanted to hear how you transitioned from football to golf. I didn't know we were going to have football to tennis to golf. I'm like, okay, that's versatile and then some. So thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it.